Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
Is there really a difference between a financial advisor and someone who does retirement planning? Oh, yeah.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, the Worry-Free Retirement, with your host, retirement specialist, and six-time author and fiduciary, Tony Walker.
Over the past 40 years of working in the financial trenches, it recently dawned on me as to why savers are so confused about retirement, and more specifically, which financial products and financial strategies they should employ with their money in this thing called retirement. The confusion, of course, is financial advice, and not just any financial advice, but the many varying opinions that come from the financial world that differ wildly depending on who you're listening to. Don't believe me? Just Google some of the following topics and the top-of-the-mind questions on the hearts and minds of savers to see what you come up with. Questions like, should I buy an annuity? Should I invest in Bitcoin? Should I do a Roth conversion? And here's a common question among savers. When should I begin to take my Social Security? And that's just a few of the questions that will draw several different opinions. And seeing as though there are thousands of advisors along with thousands of talking heads on radio, TV, and the internet, you will get to enjoy thousands of different opinions. So who are you going to trust with all of the conflicting advice you are now receiving? Well, as we're about to learn, it is not the advice that is the source of all the confusion among savers, but rather the lack of a plan, which is the topic of today's show, the difference between an advisor and a planner. Well, welcome, folks, to the Worry-Free Retirement. And yes, I am that little man in the sweater vest, retirement planning specialist and full-time fiduciary, Tony Walker. And today I'm going to share with you the secret to a worry-free retirement and why having a plan will help you cut through the confusion of all the advice you're receiving from the financial world. But first, let me introduce two young lads in the Worry-Free Production Studios who are always giving me advice each week to make this show better and better. America's favorite financial sidekick, Mr. Aaron Orender, along with Louisville, Kentucky's most laid-back graphics artist, Mr. Derek Hudson. Okay, let's say you are retired or getting ready to retire in the next few years, which is our clientele. You have saved a lot of money in your 401k or other retirement accounts, and now it's showtime. You've got to decide where to invest your life savings, knowing that your paycheck is about to end and this savings is going to have to last as long as you do. Where do you turn for advice? And how, here's the key question, how do you know the advice you're about to receive is the right advice for you? I mean, just log on to the internet and start asking some of these questions and watch how many different opinions you will receive from these questions. So why is this? Why in the world would there not be just one answer to each and every question? Well, because here's the dirty little secret in the financial world, and it's about advice. You can get all the advice you can find, but in the end, it's all just someone's opinion. That's it. And while some of us may have more educated and experienced opinions than others, nevertheless, the advice you receive from anyone on any topic is based on their opinion. Otherwise, it wouldn't be called advice. Which is why I'm not only a financial advisor sharing my opinions with savers, but first and foremost, my background and my training is in the art of planning, and quite frankly, I'm pretty good at it. So how do we at Tony Walker Financial use our expertise in planning to form our opinions on what the saver needs to do to be worry-free in retirement? Well, when I return, I'm going to share with you 3 different case studies to prove my point as to why having a plan is way more important than getting advice. I'm Tony Walker. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Our Tony Walker Financial Client Spotlight today shines brightly on Beth and Sam Thornton.
Well, in the past, we had been through a couple of other companies, and the first one that we kind of had the impression the guy was like a used car salesman. And in the second company, we were just a very small spec. We were ready for a change, and it strictly from the TV commercials and how we found out about Tony. And I was concerned in retirement because I don't like to sit around, got to stay busy, and I honestly was a bit concerned about filling my time, but it has not been an issue. It seems about the time I retired that everybody found out, hey, this guy works on clocks, and they come out of the woodwork. Sometimes I come home and find them sitting on the back porch. So what I do with the repairs and restorations, I do right upstairs in the shop, and metal polishing and all the repairs and soldering, welding, got a metal lathe, and so lucky, got a pretty nice shop.
But we both had hobbies that we enjoyed doing. So we knew that we would not be bored during retirement. I have been scrapbooking and card making and going to crafting events for over 20 years, and have a lot of friends that I am able to do this with.
Well, I think everybody has to have a passion for something. You know, you got to find something that you want to get up for in the morning. I think it'd probably be the number one piece of advice. And if you don't have anything, find a new skill.
Yes, learn to do something.
I'm one that believes that basically anybody can do anything they want to do if they want to do it bad enough. Find something you can be passionate about. So,
looking for an advisor you can trust? Schedule your free phone call with Tony at TonyWalkerFinancial.com or call 1-877-499-9255.
Chalk it up to having a degree in psychology, but in 1986, just 2 years after entering the financial world and, quite frankly, growing weary of pitching financial products to anybody I could talk to, I realized that what I enjoyed most about this business was not the financial products and strategies we offered, but rather the joy that came from first learning what makes people tick and then finding out their goals and aspirations for their lives, and then doing the best I could to help them achieve whatever it was they were looking for. It was a huge turning point for me and led me to not only taking lots of time to study and learn from some of the top financial institutions around, but also to study under some of the greatest financial minds I could find. It was time spent on my own and money spent to train myself in what I call the art of retirement planning. No, I could have just kept selling products based on opinions and skipped the whole learning thing of planning altogether. But instead, I decided to become a planner. But back then, my only exposure to retirement was watching my granddad's worry-free lifestyle play out back in 1978. It was at that point in my career to come up with a planning process that emulated the carefree lifestyle that I witnessed my granddad enjoy, one that included something he called mailbox money. Armed with this mission in mind to help and find savers and to help them worry less about retirement, I decided to learn more about people and planning and how one day I could create a process that would allow our clients to be more worry-free in retirement, yep, just like Granddad. But not just any client, but those I deemed to be what I call the saver personality. Those who, like my granddad, were much more concerned about the return of their money as opposed to the return on it. And boy, as we record this show in November of 2024 with the election behind us, it appears the stock market is rising to the stars. But me, as a planner whose mission is to help these savers be worried less in retirement, I have to stick to my guns and I have to stick to the plan. Don't be enamored with what's going on in the stock market or whether now is the time to load up on Bitcoin. Remember how hard it was for you to save this money and your desire to be armed with security in the planning process. The problem is, most of you don't have a plan because the financial world doesn't have a plan for you either. You got to understand, the financial world's goal is to react to what's hot and what's not. Folks, that's not a plan. A 401k is not a plan. A Roth conversion is not a plan. Annuities, stocks, bonds, CDs, these are not plans. They are simply products, transactions, strategies that fall under the advice of opinion. So let's look at 3 different cases that I worked on very recently just to see how different folks' situations are and how a plan is necessary in all three of these situations. Let's take a look at, first of all, plan number one. The 63-year-old single male. Let's take a look at this. This male had a $250,000 home with $100,000 of debt and had about a 4% interest rate on the home. This person also had 2 rental properties that were paid for, and he was collecting a good rent on. But here's the problem. He was worried as he gets older that he was going to have a lot of maintenance and take care of these homes, and wondering if he should sell them. He also had $100,000 in an IRA and $50,000 in savings, and basically he came to me and said that he wasn't sure what to do with these rental properties. I asked why. He looked me up and he said, well, Tony, I went to my financial advisor and he immediately said that I should just sell the properties and invest the money with him. And when I asked how he felt about that, he said, well, I realized when he just blew off my situation and wanted me to just sell these properties that he just wanted to have a transaction. So a good example of not having a plan before making a major financial decision. Here's another case. This came up the other day. 71-year-old couple living fine on their Social Security and pension, but they were worried about something called the required minimum distribution that all of us have to worry about when you turn 73. He had an IRA of about $500,000. She had an IRA of about $200,000. Had about $100,000 in the bank. They wanted to keep liquid for travel. They were charitably minded. They wanted to start gifting money to the kids. And again, they talked to their current advisor, who apparently didn't talk to them about any of these goals. What did the advisor want to do? Immediately wanted them to do a Roth conversion and put all of the money from the Roth conversion into an annuity with a bonus. No thought given at all to the common sense of why you would even do this. Why were they confused? Why did they come to me? It's the usual result. No written game plan. Another example that came up the other day, folks, again, I'm meeting 20 to 30 people a week. I'm in the trenches. I see this all the time. 68-year-old widow, husband died 5 years ago. The financial advisor he always had, she maintained, but then he calls out of the blue and says he's moved firms. Wants her to move the money over to his new firm. Well, in the meantime, the existing firm has a new advisor calling her, asking her to stay put. She comes to me for a second opinion. I said, first of all, ma'am, we are independent advisors. We're not going to move anywhere. And second of all, I asked her, where in the world is your plan? And of course, she said, I don't have one. So therein lies the problem, folks. Most people do not have a plan, and that's why they are so confused and so vulnerable to what we call financial opinions. So if that's you, if you're sitting there and you finally have realized, Tony, now I understand why I'm confused and worried, I don't have a plan. If that sounds like you, then we need to talk. And we made this so easy to do, we call it the free 10-minute fiduciary phone call, and here's how this works. All you got to do is log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. You're going to hit that Let's Get Started button. We will contact you to arrange that 10-minute phone call with you and I. Then if it merits, we can meet in person. That's not a problem. Oh, by the way, internet not your thing? That's not a problem either. Just give us a call anytime at 877-499-9255. We'll be right back. Have you recently retired, been laid off, or offered a pension buyout? Has the company you work for moved, been acquired, or closed its doors forever? And finally, do you have a 401k with a previous employer you'd like to move to safer territory? Then take advantage of this opportunity to move your 401k or lump sum pension to Tony Walker Financial. Let's meet in person to discuss your retirement options. Log on now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com to schedule your free, no obligation appointment. Let us help you today.
Hi, this is Lisa here at Tony Walker Financial with today's most common Social Security question. What is the maximum Social Security retirement benefit? The maximum benefit depends on the age and year you retire. For example, for someone who reaches full retirement age in 2024, the maximum benefit is $3,822. For someone age 70 in 2024, the maximum benefit would be $4,873.
And now it's time for Tony in the Trenches.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us here on the WorryFree Retirement. I've got our next Tony in the Trenches right here, so let's get to it. This TNT comes to us from Peggy in Jeffersonville, Indiana. Tony, some 10 years ago, I rolled my 401k to a local advisor who placed it in an annuity. Since that time, I never heard from them until recently when they called out of the blue to say they had better options with my money. Why would they be contacting me now?
Great question from Peggy, and boy, we're seeing this come up more and more. So a little history to explain what's going on in the annuity world. Right after 9/11, I was one of the few people out there that was a financial advisor that started focusing on fixed annuities. They weren't really very popular back then. Since that time, I've personally written over $700 million of fixed annuities. I know these products really well, and more importantly, the experience of watching them play out has really been helpful to me, my practice, and of course our clients. Now, since that time, in the last 10 to 15 years, more and more people started selling annuities. A lot of annuity contracts are written on what's called a 10-year surrender term. They're very common. Nothing necessarily wrong with them. You just have to understand how to use these products, because if you bail out, I'll show you this in a minute, there are penalties. Now, why is Peggy and many others starting to all of a sudden be contacted by former advisors who sold them annuities 10 plus years ago, and now all of a sudden these advisors are coming out of the woodwork wanting to talk because these surrender charges are up and these annuities can now be rolled over or moved to something totally different. At Tony Walker Financial, by the way, if you do get a call from somebody wanting to move over an annuity, even if it's got a small surrender charge, please, before you make a move on that, contact us. Folks, we've been doing annuities so long, many of you are going to get locked right back into another annuity. They're wanting to turn that annuity into another commission. You have to be really careful with this. So to help us understand how this works, I'm going to walk over to the whiteboard, and I'm going to explain surrender charges. I've actually never done this in all the years I've talked about annuities. By the way, there's a great booklet online if you want to download it I wrote called Annuities Made Easy. Just go to TonyWalkerFinancial.com, hit that download section, and download that booklet. I think it's really going to help you. But let's say this is a 10-year annuity contract. What that means is if you cash in the annuity within the first 10 years that it is written, they're going to charge a surrender charge, all right? It's different for different companies. This isn't science here. I'm just kind of showing you examples of how it works, again, because different companies charge different percentages. But let's say you put in $100,000, maybe like Peggy, you rolled over a 401k, been to a dinner seminar, it sounded great. Maybe it's an indexed annuity. They're promising you the moon. You throw it in there, and it's for long term. Okay, so the first year, maybe the index goes up 2%, so it's worth 102. But notice you got this surrender value. If Peggy were to cash this in, she only gets $90,000. Pretty big hit. Maybe it goes up to 106 the next year. Surrender charge goes away a little bit, but it's still hefty. Maybe the next year, the indexed annuity 110. You can see it. 2 years in a row, I did this on purpose. You know, an indexed annuity may not grow. We've seen this some. Even though the markets go up, depending on the indices, participation rates, it could stay level. Now, granted, you're not going to lose anything, but it may not go up in value. The surrender charge, though, would start going away because of the number of years. Each year, it gets less and less. So as we fast forward down to the end of the 10th year, notice the contract value, that's what the actual annuity is worth, and the surrender value are finally equal. Okay? This is why so many agents are now looking into their files trying to find these, even though you haven't heard from them for 10 years. They're wanting to make another sale. The annuity is out of surrender, and they can churn that thing and do something else with it. That's why they're contacting you, which, again, you got to ask yourself, well, where have they been the last 10 years? Well, they're coming back because there's another sale to be had. Now, be aware of this. There's a lot of annuities out there that have bonuses attached. This might have been offered a 10% bonus, okay? You got to be careful because some of these contracts, the bonus is not fully vested until even like the 14th year. So that means, yeah, you might get all of your surrender value waived, but then if you surrender the contract, part of the bonus may not be given back to you. So you got to be really careful of this. Here's my suggestion. If you own a current annuity, if it's been a few years, maybe nobody's looked at it, especially if you're coming up on this mark or you get this random letter that somebody wants to review your annuity, call us and get a second opinion. There would be no cost or obligation. All you got to do is log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Click on that Let's Get Started. Tell us what you're contacting us about. If it's this issue, we can certainly help. Sometimes over the phone, we can try to help you think through things. But if we need to, we can meet in person and go over your annuities, do an analysis, absolutely free. Meet with somebody that's very experienced in this world. If the internet's not your thing, by the way, just give us a call anytime, 877-499-9255, and we'll be happy at no cost or obligation to review your annuity, especially if it's coming out of surrender, to see if there's some better options available to you. We'll be right back.
Our Tony Walker Financial 5-star review comes to us from Jill. We have been very happy with Tony Walker Financial. Having started with very little knowledge of how to best invest, Tony and Trey have both taken their time to answer all our questions. We recommend them without reservation. We also really enjoyed the client appreciation dinner. If you'd like to read more of our 5-star reviews, simply log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
Have yourself a merry little Christmas.
WorryFree Music presents the greatest collection of Christmas covers ever assembled.
It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. Hey!
Tony Walker's A Humdinger Christmas. 486 timeless classics across 6 digitally remastered 8-track tapes.
Happy holidays.
Every song fills your home with holiday magic.
Sing ding-a-ding, ring ding-a-ding, ding ding-a-ding, dong ding-a-ding, ring ding-a-ding, ding ding-a-ding, ring ding-a-ding, ring ding-a-ding.
Don't miss this opportunity to receive Tony Walker's A Humdinger Christmas, the perfect way to celebrate the joy of this holiday season.
Dashing through the snow, hey, and 1-horse open sleigh, yeah.
Only $685 plus $3 shipping and handling. Order yours today.
8-track tape player not included. Offer void where prohibited.
And from all of us at Tony Walker Financial, have a Merry Christmas.
The theme of today's show revolves around this notion that there are 2 approaches to life's most challenging problems, and that is solving those problems that occur. The first falls into the area of what we call advice, that is, the seeking out of opinions from others you hope know more about the subject at hand than you do. In the financial world, this would fall into the camp of financial advisors, of which I am one. Our job is to give you our opinion on what you should do transactionally to try to solve a problem or a concern. That's it. Problem is, based on our experience and our expertise and our motivation for maybe what's in it for us, our advice may or may not always be in the client's best interest. That's just a fact. On the other hand, we have something called planning or having a plan. A plan does not start with advice. A plan starts with seeking what it is you want in life, and then after having the plan, you then decide what steps or products or actions you're going to take based on the plan, which is where we at Tony Walker Financial fall in line. We are planners first, not advisors. The advice we give our saver clients is based on the plan that we create after we understand what it is the client is wanting to do and where they one day want to end up in this thing called retirement. Yet with all this advice and all the planning, there's still a problem. No matter how much we might plan, things can change, especially when it comes to our plans around finances and money. Contrary to what many in the financial world might have you believe, is that plans do not change. They assume that the stock market will never crash again. They just assume you'll always be healthy. They assume that your kids may never fall into despair or need financial assistance. Or they assume that you're never possibly going to be tossed into a nursing home, and here's another one, and that this money might dry up at the end of the plan. No, changes will occur and plans will have to be adjusted to meet those changes. But not so with God. You see, according to Jeremiah 29:11, God already has a plan for us, and in the words of Shannon Ross, it's a
humdinger.
What about Proverbs 19:21? It reminds us that while man is okay to construct his own plans, God's going to as well. But unlike our plans that are based on sometimes flimsy opinions of others, that would be man, God's plans are based on His perfect and purposeful will. You see, God does not plan without a purpose. His purpose is for our good and His glory. And it's His purpose that always wins out over our plans, which, dear human, is a good thing, seeing as though our plans can be futile at best. So based on God's purpose, what is God's plan for us? Well, we have to go back to Genesis 1:27, when God created man in His own image. An image that included God's perfection and purpose, and yes, a plan. A plan that included a son sent to earth to live and die and then be resurrected on our behalf. What a plan, is what I would say. And while the many religions offered up by man are here for a purpose, they in and of themselves are not the plan of salvation. Only God has that. A plan that includes a purpose, as Psalms 47:4 reminds us, includes Him choosing for us our inheritance. Think about that for a moment. As we fumble and bumble with trying to figure out what we might leave as an inheritance when we die, God has already provided for us our inheritance because of Christ's death. Of this wonderful plan and gift of salvation and the inheritance that is eternal life, the late great Charles Spurgeon says this, "Believer, if your inheritance is a lowly one, you should be satisfied with your earthly portion, for you may rest assured that it is the fittest for you." Translation, the plan of salvation that God has in store for you and I have nothing to do with how much money we have. In other words, it's not about the money. Spurgeon goes on to say that whatever your current situation in this world might be, that you and I should be content with such things as we have, since the Lord has ordered all things for our good. And there you have it. God is a planner, but a planner with a purpose. So, Christian, while I would encourage you to always seek the advice of others whom you feel know more about money and retirement than you do, and for sure, be sure they give you a written game plan so you can figure out how to use and enjoy this money without the fear of one day running out, don't forget that plans can change, and in the end, this life is not about the money, but fulfilling God's purpose in your life and in my life. We were created in His image, and one day we will get to see in full what that image really is supposed to look like. And that's a good plan of action that you and I can take to the bank. Amen? Well, speaking of having a plan for the future, could that be the reason you are concerned about your future? That is, that you don't have a plan at all? Maybe that your advisor or somebody that you feel like you can trust has not taken the time to put in writing what your plans are. So, if you're like one of my customers who recently said you feel like you're flying by the seat of your pants, then we need to talk. And we've made this so easy by arranging a free phone call that we call the free 10-minute fiduciary phone call. And here's how easy it is for you and I to talk by phone. Just log on right now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com, and when you get there, just click on that Let's Get Started button, and we will arrange that phone call. Then, after our phone call, if it looks like we can be of service, I'm going to meet with you in person. That's right, the owner of the company meeting with you in person, free of charge, at either our Bowling Green, Louisville, or Lexington, Kentucky offices. So take advantage of this free phone call, TonyWalkerFinancial.com, or call us anytime at 877-499-9255. Well, that's all the time we have for today's program. But you remember, between now and next week, if all else fails, you be worry-free and you make it a good one.